The Lives of Agatha Christie and Emily Bronte by Emma Bretthauer and Chris Beale.
Agatha Christie and Emily Bronte were not only influential but successful women authors. Even though they were both successful, it was uncommon for women to write at the level in which Christie and Bronte did. Although they grew up in different eras, both women helped to change the belief that women could not compare to men.
Agatha Christie was born in Torquay, located near the southern coast of England, on September 15, 1890. Neither her father, Frederick Alva Miller, nor her mother, Clarissa Margaret Miller, worked. Agatha's brother, Louis, and her sister, Madge, were both much older than her.
Emily Bronte was born in Thornton, Yorkshire on July 30, 1818. She was born to Patrick and Maria Branwell Bronte. Patrick Bronte was a reverend at a local church, and her mother stayed at home and tended to the children. Bronte's family moved to Hawthorne shortly after she was born.
Agatha and her family moved to France when she was 9. Her father did not have to work because he inherited money. She was pushed by her mother, whom believed Agatha could do anything she wanted. This was not a common thought at this time because of the gender barriers between men and women. Her father died in November 1901 of a heart attack. This death led to her family growing apart.
Bronte's two eldest sisters, Maria and Elizabeth, died from tuberculosis contracted at the clergy daughter school at Cannon Bridge. Despite this, Reverend Bronte sent Bronte and her sister Charlotte to the same school. The school was known for being abusive to their students, often starving them and forcing them to cut their hair short.
Agatha was very curious and eager to learn as a child. She snuck off in the mornings to read. Once her father realized how smart she was, he taught her how to write and do math. Her mother also helped Agatha in her schooling by reading poetry and books with her. As Christie grew older and became smarter, she required more professional teaching. She was sent to Miss Skyer's school in Torquay.
Emily's eldest living sister's name was Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte became famous for writing the book Jane Eyre, and unlike her sister, became famous during her lifetime. Her only brother, Branwell Bronte, was an aspiring artist and possibly Bronte's favorite sibling. Her younger sister, Anne, was whom Emily was closest to in her childhood.
Agatha did not go to college. She learned by writing her books and getting reviews. She was great at writing stories and asked many people for advice on how to improve her writing.
One day, the Bronte children's father brought home toy soldier dolls for them to play with. Charlotte and Branwell, being the two oldest Bronte children, instantly gravitated towards each other. They conjured up the country of Angria. The two created stories and plays about the country and its inhabitants. Anne and Emily, however, created the country of Gondal and followed their older siblings' suit. Most of what was written by Emily at this time has been destroyed.
Agatha's first husband, Archibald Christie, and her were married in 1914. Together they had a child named Rosalind. Rosalind was born on August 15, 1919. After an unhappy period of time, Archie left her for another woman. They were officially divorced in 1928. In 1930, Agatha Christie was married to Max Mallowan. They had met in Iraq on one of his archaeology digs.
Bronte, being an extremely reclusive and introverted girl, failed to succeed at the school and was quickly replaced with her younger sister Anne. She became a teaching assistant at Law Hill despite being heavily unqualified due to her lack of completed education, and left a few years later. She spent the rest of her life in Hawthorne.
Agatha Christie passed away on January 12, 1976 in Wallingford, United Kingdom at the age of 86. She was buried on a small church. Her death was of natural causes.
Bronte died on December 19, 1848 due to tuberculosis at the age of 20 years old. She refused to see a doctor, which allowed her condition to worsen. It is rumored that Bronte refused medical attention as a way to grieve her brother Branwell's death only months prior to hers. She was buried in Hawthorne 3 days later.
Also influenced by writing on the Orient Express in real life. The murder that took place in Murder on the Orient Express was based on the kidnapping and murder of Charles Lindbergh's son in 1932.
Bronte's first debut as an author started when her sisters Anne and Charlotte asked Bronte to add a few poems to the collection they planned to publish. The woman wrote under male pseudonyms Kerr, Acton, and Ellis Bell, respectively. Bronte reluctantly agreed to contribute to the publication, but eventually handed over 21 original pieces. Her most famous poems were Remembrance, The Prisoner, The Philosopher, Stars, and No Coward Soul Is Mine.
The story begins with a murder on a train. Pirate is hired to solve the case. He eventually finds out that all the passengers on the train contributed to the murder. He decided to allow them to leave freely because they were only killing the man for harm he had done to all the passengers.
Bronte's most notable work was Wuthering Heights. The theme of this novel is rooted in the addictive, chaotic love that plagued the main characters. Bronte's piece, through parallelisms, symbolism, and character diversity, tells a moving story about the repercussions of loss, love, and revenge. The novel effectively targets the reader's emotions as well as connecting with a portion of the human behavior in which most people try to hide.
The themes of Murder on the Orient Express begin with the idea that people deserve justice. This theme is shown when pirate allows the passengers to get away with murder. The second theme, that things are not always as they appear, is also apparent. The passengers were not suspected until the very last second. This outcome seemed impossible until Pirate explained it in the end.
Wuthering Heights is a tragic love story in which there is no happy ending. A man by the name of Heathcliff falls in love with Catherine Earnshaw after being allowed to stay in her home as a child. Catherine, due to the way that she was raised, chooses status over love and marries Edgar Linton, not wanting to be associated with a stray. After a passionate and emotional chapter in which Heathcliff and Catherine's fatal love is revealed to them both, Catherine dies during childbirth, leaving behind his daughter, Cathy, and a distraught Heathcliff. The book ends shortly after Heathcliff's passing when Cathy and his nephew, Hareton, become engaged to be married, symbolizing the happy ending that Catherine and Heathcliff never received.
In 1971, Christie received her highest title. She became the Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. This is the highest honor she could receive. Agatha Christie received many other awards, however, they were not as notable as this one.
During Bronte's lifetime, her book was received poorly by critics everywhere. The population still yet to break away from Enlightenment ideals about the rationality of human behavior, and no one could fathom her novel as a realistic scenario. Many critics condemned her for her outlook on human nature, even though the same themes regarding human behavior would be made popular by Freud a few decades following publication. She received no awards for her novel.
Christie is known for popularizing mystery writing. She is still the most successful mystery writer of all time. Many authors still follow her mystery writing example and format. Christie would always attempt to confuse the reader in her writing. Her stories would always have a surprise element in the end in order to hide the truth from everyone. Christie's cleverness will forever challenge mystery writers all over the world.
Emily Bronte forever altered the accepted ways in which novels were written through her blatant disregard of social norms. She refused to accept that all books have to harbor a happy ending and even have characters with redeeming qualities. She took romanticism and realism to their extremes, making her writing not only plausible but subsequently frightening. This would pave the way for many authors who shared Bronte's feelings towards the status quo. She made it easier for authors everywhere to defy what society saw as acceptable to write, what was really on their minds, without having to hold back.